Hi, I'm Admiral Stanley, and welcome to the Admiral's Log. Now, today, we're going to do something a little bit different from my usual number. We're going to talk about poetry! Yay! Now wait a minute. Before you turn off the video, I see you. Take your hand off the button. Hear me out. Now, poetry to most people is pretty commonly thought of as either being the Shakespearean sonnet or something that hippies perform in a beat circle at a local coffee shop or open mic night. But let me assure you, there is poetry that doesn't actively involve itself in being dull. In fact, it tends to be a little bit less frivolous and stupid and bad. And that's poetry about war. Wilfred Owen was a war poet who experienced World War I. He recorded some of his experiences in this poem, Dulce et Decorum Est, read for you by Chris Eccleston, also known as the 9th version of Doctor Who.
Bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots but limped on, bloodshod. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of disappointed shells that dropped behind. Gas! Gas! Quick, boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone still was yelling out and stumbling, and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea I saw him, drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If, in some smothering dreams, you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face, like a devil sick of sin. If you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children, ardent for some desperate glory, the old lie. Dulce et decorum est, pro patria mori.
Alright, I guess we need to talk about this really seriously, so no more sarcasm, no more satire. The thing that really made the First World War stand out was the fact of how little actual fighting happened in respect to the rest of it. So many troops found that days on end would go by when not only would they not know who they were fighting for what little time they spent fighting, but they would march hundreds of miles through dank trenches with artillery being fired from, who knows whose side or which army. They were fighting the elements. They were fighting nature. They were not necessarily fighting each other. The mud, the cold, the trenches, the rain, and then the indirect fire weapons like the artillery and the gas were as much responsible for the deaths in the First World War as the conflict was itself. And in many ways, they were more disheartening to the troops. Now, the Latin phrase, Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori, which Owen ends his poem with, is interesting on a couple of levels. First, he describes it as the old lie, both in the fact that it is Latin and referenced from Roman literature thousands of years old, and that the sentiment of what it represents is also old. Roughly translated, it means it is glorious to die for one's country. And Owen's entire poem, the meaning, the real essence that he's trying to get across to you, is the reader, is how horrible the conditions are. And the fact that at the end of the day, it is anything but glorious to die for one's country. Because death is death. It's horrible, it's awful, and the conditions they're living in are terrible, and all of this fighting, just because it's for their country, doesn't suddenly make it better. So Owen warns us not to tell with such high zest to children ardent for some glory the tales of these wars, not to tell them the old lie, not to tell them of the romanticization of warfare, something that we in the modern day are very familiar with. Cue Michael Bay.
Michael Bay presents Explosions!
Now, as awesome as all those explosions are, they are a representation of war, and we see them as entertainment, popcorn films. We go and munch down our popcorn and enjoy them. And at the end of the day, this is exactly the kind of thing that romanticizes combat, conflict, and war. The exact thing that Owen was warning us against. Because, unlike us, and Mark Wahlberg, and Shia LaBeouf, and Brad Pitt, and all the others, he lived it. He was there. He watched his friends die. Now, this poem had a very significant impact on me. It opened my eyes to the possibilities of poetry, something I had really never considered before. I didn't consider poems to be a very legitimate form of literature. Most of my experiences with that, as I said before, were in coffee shops or open mic nights or that kind of thing. Beat poets and beat poetry about people's personal experiences, things that I couldn't relate to in any capacity. And while I can't directly relate to Owen and his poetry about war, it is something that I've been both fascinated by, entertained by, and studied over the course of my entire life. So that relationship, that history, meant more to me than the struggles of a random person in a local coffee shop. Because of that, the poem really resonated with me. I understood Owen, I understood his struggle, I understood the suffering, I understood the war. I couldn't totally conceptualize it again because it's outside my realm of experience, but I empathized. I felt what he was trying to say, and I had a journey from the beginning to the end of the poem, an experience I've never had reading a poem before. Feeling something, a strong emotion at the beginning, feeling it swell in the middle, understanding his message at the end and tying it all together was an extraordinary feeling, and it has really legitimized poetry to me. Things don't have to just be poems about love or your experiences at the DMV or Shakespearean sonnets. Poems can be about anything. They're a personal expression, a personal experience, something you've chosen to share. They can carry a message, they can have a point, they can be commercialized, but that doesn't in any way take away from the people who do it on their own, in their own microcosm. The ability to share those individual moments and experiences, the things that they have that were meaningful to them, in one simple, short, typically, format. And I think that's just special. And it's really, really opened my eyes. I've been seeking out a significantly larger percentage of poetry in my everyday reading, because I've found so much more of it that appeals to me, and so much of it that's written in understandable English. I have a little bit of trouble with dialect and complicated Old English. It's one of the reasons Shakespeare gave me so much trouble. And I've even been learning to appreciate the poetry written by friends and family and colleagues and people at local open mic nights and coffee shops. Who knows what the future will hold? Maybe I'll write a poem myself one day. Only time will tell. Well, thank you for tuning in to the Admiral's Log. This is issue 1, and it was a school assignment for my English 298 class. Thank you very much for an excellent class, Dr. Nelson. And I look forward to getting issue 2 out and discussing something that's a little more up my alley, like some computer games or science fiction or something. Till then, the Admiral, signing out. Insert America. Fuck yeah.
America, fuck yeah, coming again to save the motherfucking day. Yeah, America, fuck yeah, freedom is the only way. Yeah, terrorist, you're getting us through, 'cause now you have to answer to America. Fuck yeah, America. Fuck